Let's create a first pivot table. This example file will be used for most of the lectures, and I want all of us to get super comfortable and really understand the data and all the fields that are present so that when we are creating different charts, visualization, analytics, we know what type of data sets we're dealing with. If you want to download this data set, you can simply Google Global Superstore Data V2 and simply open the first link that appears. This is a fictitious data set which is sales for an organization which is selling globally, and you can simply download the file from here. In our data set, we have 24 columns. We have over 50,000 records, and these are the columns that we have. We have the row ID, the order ID, the order date, and the shipping date. The order is for 4 years, 2012, 13, 14, and 15. And shipping date is for 5 years, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. There are four different shipping modes: first class, same day, second class, and standard class. Of course, there are numerous customers that we have. We have their IDs and their names. There are three business segments: consumer, corporate, and home office. Postal codes are mentioned for some of the records, while for the other records, there is a null value. Then we have the city, state, the country, the region, and the market. So from column J all the way till column N, we have the geographic data set: city, state, country, region, and the market. Then we have the product ID. We have three categories: furniture, office supplies, and technology. We have numerous subcategories. The product name. Now, the product name again is a very large list because we are selling numerous products. So there are hundreds of products that we are selling. And then we have sales, quantity, discount, and profit along with the shipping cost. So from column S till column W, we have the quantitative metrics. So sales tells us the amount of sale that has happened. Quantity is the quantity sold. Discount should actually be expressed as a percentage, which means that whether that particular customer was given a discount on the transaction or not. In column V, we can see whether the company earned a profit or not from that particular transaction. And then finally, we have the shipping cost. The very last column that we have is the order priority, which is critical, high, low, and medium. This is just a categorical data set in case we want to do some more detailed analysis. Excellent. So we have acquainted ourselves with the data set. Now let's create our first pivot table. We can select the entire data set, click on insert, and then select pivot table. In the pop-up that opens up, it asks us for a few options. One is that we can choose the table name. So right now I'm working with table 1. So it has already seen that we are working with table number 1. We can either create the pivot table on a new worksheet, which is the default option, or we can create it on the existing worksheet. Of course, with such a large data set, it doesn't really make sense to create a pivot table on the existing worksheet. But if you're working with a smaller data set, perhaps you might want to do that. And then there is a third option called add this data to the data model. This is something that we will not do right now, but in the more advanced lectures, we will see what a data model is and how it can help us. So as you can see, I'm not changing anything right now. We simply click on OK. And a new sheet is created called sheet number 1. And a few things have changed on our sheet. On the right side, there is a list of all the fields that have been picked up from the dataset. Below that, we have four different areas. We have filter, column, row, and values. This is what will allow us to create a pivot table. And at the top, two new tabs have been created: pivot table analyze and pivot table design. If I click on any cell outside the pivot table region, you notice that those two contextual tabs go away. But if I select any cell within this area, then the tabs will come back. We will be doing all these options in a lot of details, but just a quick walkthrough of what all of these options do. We have the pivot table name. We can give it any name that we want. So I'm just going to call this first pivot. Below that, you have some options that we can change. These options can also be accessed by the Excel file options. Again, we're not making any change right now. We have the ability to add some slicers and timeline in case we want to create a dynamic dashboard. We can clear the existing pivot, select the pivot and move it to a different sheet. We can also, once we have created a pivot table, add a pivot chart. In design, we have different options for hiding and showcasing the subtotal, grand total, different layouts, blank rows, and then different styles that are available. In the next lecture, we will create our first pivot table. That means we will put in some rows and columns and values, and we will also go through the design option to see how we can make our pivot tables look a little better.